I just recorded the whole intro and then forgot to change the input. So take 2. It's me, Blush Cameron here. What you just heard was a clip from an unreleased song that I've been working on. What'd you think? It's called Ribbons on the Cuffs. It's not out yet, but it will be soon. It's going to be on an album I'm working on. If you liked it, be sure to check out my music that is released by searching Blush Cameron wherever you usually listen to music. Anyways, today's guest is my buddy Eric Butler from the band Mom Jeans, period. I like Eric a lot. I always have a great time chatting with them, and I'm really grateful that they agreed to come on and talk to me. I'm not sure how many pods Eric has done or how many interviews, but hopefully there's some new information and new interesting stories for the fans. Certainly for me it was a very interesting conversation hearing their perspective, and they've had a really interesting and unique ascent in the indie world. They've had to deal with a lot of shit, and they've been involved, in various controversies and have dealt with a lot of hate. But they're still here, and they've got a ton of really nice fans, and I think they're a really good influence on the kids that come to their shows. I've been to their shows, and a lot of kids love their music. It's always a really hype vibe, and I enjoy it. I like seeing what they do, and I like seeing their fans have fun at their shows. We went deep in today's conversation. We went into Eric's history playing music and touched on pretty much every Mom Jeans related topic you can think of. We talked about everything from their rise, how they became popular, the toll that popularity can take, and the toll that the mental toll that the music industry has taken on Eric. And we talked about beefing with Anthony Fantano, and we even talked about being friends with Hobo Johnson. So yeah, I think. We also talked about like the current lineup and how the writing process is way different for their next album. So I think any Mom Jeans fans out there will definitely dig the conversation that we had. There's one small problem though. About halfway through, we start breaking up a bit here and there. So please bear with us. It gets a little rough near the end, but I tried to clean it up as best I could. I left in everything that I thought you'd be able to, get the gist of. Just sorry. Next episode is going to be featuring my buddy Kyle Luck. Kyle played in a band called Oliver Houston, which is a Midwest emo band. We've been on a roll with these emo bands lately, so I figured, might as well keep it up. If you have anyone you'd like to see as a guest on the podcast, let me know. Leave a comment or DM. I'd love to hear from you. Okay, without further ado, here's the show. How's your quarantine been and all that?
It's been it's been complicated. It's weird. I'm half grateful to live where I live right now, like California Bay Area. Like they're taking everything really seriously, which is nice. Like they're taking shelter in place really seriously, and like the community at large seems to be like trying to take things pretty seriously. So I'm grateful for that, but it's definitely feeling a little bit caged up. For sure, dude, I think everybody's starting to feel that way.
all the days are just like blending together for me, and it's like they're going by faster and faster. It's freaking me out.
Yeah, totally. It's like May already, basically. And
Yeah.
it like, I don't know, it kind of, to me, it feels like we just got back from Australia, like first week of March.
Uh-huh.
And like, I don't know where those 2 months went because I feel like I've been bored as shit this whole time.
Are you still in a house with the band, or you guys live separately?
Yeah, so it's like so myself and Austin, like our drummer,
Uh-huh.
like we've been and we're like the core of the band and like have always been, and we've lived together like since college. And Joel lives with us too, like our TM, like art director, Jay
Uh-huh.
Crum. He lives with us as well. So the three of us share a house in San Leandro. So Sam, our bass player, like he lives with his parents, like Sam from JF and Snooze and everything. He lives like 25 minutes away from us in Dublin, California, which is like the same area where like I grew up and like went to high school, and my dad still lives out there. And then Bart lives a solid like 2, almost 3 hours away from us. He lives in Fresno.
Oh wow.
So we don't see him a whole lot. And I understand why he lives there. Like it's super cheap. And like that's where he's from. That's where he grew up. He doesn't want to live anywhere else. And like I feel that way about the Bay Area too. So he's always willing to drive up and like do things, and he's really good at like remote demoing and like writing music on his own. So he makes it
Oh,
work.
well, that's good. Is there like a scene in Fresno?
There was.
I don't really know
it's
what.
hard to say. We haven't really been as involved. I haven't really been as involved in the DIY scene as I used to be for like the last 2 years.
Uh-huh.
And like any time that we've played Fresno in the last 2 years, it's been like at Strummers, like at the venue where like every band plays, and like we sold it out, and it's been cool and it's been fun. Like Fresno definitely rides for us. Like
Yeah.
it's hometown gang. It's like a second hometown for us. So we've always had good experiences there. I mean, like if you're in a band like on the West Coast in California, like you play a lot of places that people don't know about because it's just so big. Like California
Right.
is like such a wide expanse.
It's like two states.
Where it's like 5 states, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, like the way like on the East Coast, you could drive for 5 hours straight and go through 3 or 4 states. Like
Yeah.
you can drive for 12 hours and you're still in California. And so there's like all these little towns and places like the first tour we ever did, we didn't leave the West Coast. Like we barely even went to Oregon to
Right.
Washington. Like we did 2 weeks of shows just in California.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
there's
I can't
definitely like a
imagine.
lot of little places out there, and Fresno has always been like a little pocket place because there's always been, and largely, honestly, it was because of Bart, and was because of the bands that he was in, like Meet
Uh-huh.
Me in Montauk and Grad Life, and he was kind of honestly for a while single-handedly like keeping the music scene alive in Fresno. But there are young kids like coming up, and kind of like there's always going to be like high schoolers that like listen to Minor Threat, you know.
Yeah,
So there's
of
always
course,
going to
yeah.
be like a scene there. I think Fresno is definitely one of those places where like there's not much else to do,
Right.
so kids are always going to find music.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's definitely just not the first place that I would think of to have a scene, but the places that, like you said, don't have a lot going on, otherwise have the biggest crowd of kids, which is sick.
You know exactly, and like the people who know, and the like anybody who has like started or been a part of the journey like through the music industry and like through DIY like knows about Fresno. Like I saw Jeff Rosenstock play to like 40 people in a tiny record store in Fresno that doesn't exist anymore. That's fucking hilarious. And anybody like I don't know, people from like at least our generation like definitely like remember Fresno as being like a wacky fucking tour stop that you always had to make.
For sure. Yeah, I'd love to get back out there. I was born in San Francisco, but I've barely been
Oh, for
back.
sure.
I mean, I only lived there
Yeah,
till I was
SF's tight.
I only lived there till I was 2, so it barely counts for anything. But
Word.
so what kind of stuff do you do these days when you're not playing shows?
Well, I've been going to therapy a lot.
Oh, good.
And just like reconnecting with like my family and dealing just kind of like dealing with a lot of personal demons and like working on personal growth, like DIY and like touring and being in this band like took a really, really, really big toll on my mental health.
In what ways would you
and
say?
In a lot of ways, I think I don't want to sound like derogatory or that I don't appreciate like our roots or where we come from, but they're like DIY is such a toxic environment, And like, I mean, the music industry as a whole is such a toxic place.
Yeah.
And I think that it really forces you to give up pieces of yourself for the sake of becoming more popular, becoming more successful, or making more money, or even just it was really easy for me to lose sight of the reason why I was doing the things that I was doing, and the reason why I wanted to be on tour, and the reason why I wanted to make music, which ultimately for me is like, music is my diary, and like music is my oxygen, and like playing in a band, and just like, it's not even so much about performing as it is that feeling when you get when you make music with somebody that you really, really connect with. For me, that's always been our drummer Austin, and like our bass player Sam and Bart. Like, there's a reason why this band is special to me, and why playing music with these people is special to me. And that's why I want to be in a band. That's why I want to be on tour, is because I want to share that with other people, and I want to have those experiences with my friends. And I think I allowed myself to get caught up in a lot of other stuff. I'm just worrying about paying the bills, and about being able to continue to do it. And I think, honestly, we're all searching for like this fake kind of sense of stability in the music industry.
Right.
And it's really scary and hard to come to terms with the fact that, like, in reality, that doesn't exist.
No.
And that, I don't think that should be, I don't want that to be like demotivational or something that stops people from pursuing art and pursuing music, if it's something that they really want to do. But I think I look at it as like a trade-off. Like, as human beings, at least like in this fucked up ass capitalistic system that we live in right now, we kind of have a choice. It's either like you join the rat race and like you do what the man tells you to do, and you kind of like you walk the path that's set before you, that you've been told is the way to go for success, right? And that's cool and that's awesome. And that is, I think, where that sense of like safety and security comes from for a lot of people, like knowing that you're like doing the quote unquote right thing, doing what works, what has worked for humans for centuries and whatnot. But for me, like, I'm not interested in that. Like, I want to be an artist. Like, I want to walk my own path. I want to forge my own way. And I think part of that is giving up that any semblance of like security or any kind of, like promise that you're going to wake up tomorrow and like have a job, or that people are still going to connect with what you're doing, or that you are going to, I think, like intrinsically have some kind of meaning or some kind of purpose if you don't find it for yourself. And that's like really scary and hard.
No, yeah, I mean, a lot
to
of people,
grapple with.
A lot of people are living like that anyways these days, even if they're not making art. It's like, Uber drivers and like gig workers, Amazon workers, like just the working class is just completely fucked in all sorts of ways.
Like, human beings have been turned into fuel for this like machine. And at least for me, like, I recognized that I wasn't going to feel that security. I wasn't going to be able to buy into that sense of security or that feeling of like, I guess, like protection or like safety. If I did, go the traditional route, like I went to college and I got a degree to get my parents off my back at the end of the day.
Oh, but, yeah. Like, what did you go for?
I got a degree in sociology, and it's collecting dust on my dad's wall in his office. Like, I haven't done anything with it. I haven't worked a real job since my sophomore year of college. And, like, I think for me, like, I knew I was never going to be happy, and I was never going to be able to buy into that sense of security if I did the rat race, if I did the, quote unquote right thing anyway. So I might as well forge my own path, and I might as well do my own thing, and I might as well be able to like be an artist and like be creative. And I guess like my therapist says this a lot, like, be motivated by like love and passion and excitement instead of like fear and anxiety. And I think, at least for me personally, being on the road for such a long time and being on tour for such a long time and starting to see like income be able to be generated and look at this band as like a job and as a career, it can be empowering, but for me it was really damaging, because it just like, it all of a sudden became tangled in with these things that I was supposed to be doing. It became this thing of like, well, if you want to play these bigger shows, you have to do this and you have to do that. And it's really, really scary and hard to unlearn that. Like, Mom Jeans does not operate in the way that a lot of bands operate. Like, we do a lot of shit ourselves, and we say no to a lot of things, and we don't get asked to do a lot of things because of that.
Right.
And that, like, part of that is, you know, we've given up any semblance of security or any semblance of like promise that, you know, this band is going to exist in 2 years or in 5 years. And the way that I make peace of that, and the way that I have to make peace of that, is like knowing that I'm surrounded by people that I care about, and knowing that I'm doing the thing that I love every day. And I wasn't really doing that. I wasn't allowing myself to be motivated by that. I was worrying about, you know, saving money and feeling like I had this safety net, and concerned about bringing in more money than I was spending. And that ultimately is like not the way that I want to live my life. And it caused my relationships to deteriorate. It caused like my own happiness to deteriorate. It caused my sense of purpose to deteriorate. And it's hard to have the awareness to like recognize those things and really like see what's going on when you have to wake up and play a show.
Yeah.
And when you have to like get in the van and just like make a tour happen. Cause like ultimately, like, we were raised to be functional people, and it's like, you say you're going to do something, like, you fucking do it. And that has always been like our bottom line as a band. And we're realizing that like, oh wow, if we take a step back and we actually focus on ourselves and we think about what we want to do, like, we don't have to play anybody's game. And maybe it means that we can't tour right now. Maybe it means we have to wait. Maybe it means that we can't just, you know, automatically be making money all the time and like feeling like we're big balling and doing everything like 24/7. But it's going to be so much more beneficial to like the longevity of this project and the longevity of us being able to be sustainable. Because the truth of the matter is that like, I want to be in this band for the rest of my life. Maybe not even this band. Like, I want to make music with these people.
Are they
for
on
the rest
same
of my
page
life
with that?
Yeah, we've all admitted that. And I mean,
see, that's really hard to find.
Yeah, it is hard to find. And the truth, and I think for me, like, I allowed myself to buy into the idea of like that meant like the physical embodiment of that being true was like making money, and was like being quote unquote successful. And being able to like, I guess being afraid that if we didn't make money, and if we weren't, I guess, like a culturally significant project at the end of the day, then nobody would want to be in this band with me anymore. Right. And that nobody would want to, and that feeling of wanting to make music together forever wouldn't exist. And we've all sat down and we've acknowledged that like, no, like, I would much rather 50 years from now be playing in like some shitty cover band with Austin and Bart and Sam, and like hanging out and drinking with them on the weekends. Like, if it's between that and like pulling in Oasis and like burning up in a gigantic ball of flames and like never talking to each other again, like, I would much rather like put the band to rest, or like put the idea of touring to rest. Because like, I don't know, you don't find people like this, you know what I mean? You don't find people like that very, very often throughout your life, and I want to keep them around.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's like such a hard thing to balance, and it's like such a shitty thing to grapple with, like like making music and wanting people to hear it, but then also you have to play this shitty industry game, and it just, you know, it makes you feel terrible. If things are either up or they're down, and most of the time they're down from some perspective, and
exactly.
It's just awful.
Yeah, and I think it is really, really hard to find that wherewithal and that consistency. And I think being able to like have that strength within yourself to like know that you're making the right choices and know that you're making the right decisions. Like, I don't think that's easy for any one person on this earth to do. Like, we all wake up the next day and like feel a little bit different than we did yesterday. And so like trying to manage that and like constantly always be, I guess, like motivated by the right things is really, really hard to do. And I think for a long time, like, I didn't want to admit that I wasn't capable of doing those things without taking a break. I didn't want to admit that like I needed to take time to myself to remind myself of those things. You know, we all in this band and in this friends group, like, we have a little bit of a Superman complex. Like, that's totally true. I think anybody who tours and like performs, and especially like the people who are the front people of their band that are, you know, creatively driving, writing, like, we all have a little bit of a Superman complex, right? In the sense of like, we have to, you know, like how are you supposed to make it through a tour if you don't believe in yourself?
Yeah.
If you don't have that Kobe mindset of like, we're gonna be successful, we're going to play this show. It's going to be a good show. We're going to play this tour. It's going to be a good tour, because you won't survive otherwise.
Yep. Yeah, I think people
but-
kind of like deny that when they're like, I always get bugged out by like I don't know, hearing like Kurt Cobain or whatever say he doesn't care about fame. It's like, what? I think that's a lie pretty much when any artist that's putting themselves out there says something like that. You know?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's that's an interesting standpoint, because I mean, like, I identify with that. Like, personally, like, I don't want fame. Like, fame makes me uncomfortable. Like, feeling like people know who I am without ever having talked to me, like, makes me uncomfortable. However, I recognize that 5 years ago, when I started this band, that seemed like a cool thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like a
Absolutely.
subconscious thing, and it's not it's a little bit of like a semantics thing. It's like, what is fame, you know? But
Yeah, totally.
ultimately, it's like, you know, you're putting yourselves out there because you want somebody to hear. You're putting your original music out there so people will listen to it. Otherwise, why else are you doing it? You know?
Yeah, I mean, for myself, like, I can identify for us, like, we wanted to put out a record because we wanted to say that we were able to do it. Like, we just, I think I look at things as like challenges. Like, at least when I see my heroes, I see people that I'm motivated by. Like, I see them doing things that I perceive as impossible, and things that I perceive as like, wow, I could never do that. And I want to figure out how, and I want to, like, feeling like I did that and feeling like I was able to, I don't know, like, learn how to do something in that way always made me feel proud. And like, the band Just Friends was like a really big motivator for us in that sense, because like, I looked at it and it was like, here's this group of kids who has no idea what the fuck they're doing at all. Like, people make fun of their band, think they sound ridiculous. I love their music. But like, they said, fuck it. They made a full length album. It got pressed on vinyl, and they went on a tour. And those, to me, were like, those were tangible things that it almost made it seem like if nobody listened to your band, it didn't matter. And I was always drawn to that. I was always drawn to like the A for effort kind of vibe. And being like, well, yeah, nobody listened to this, but like, we made a record. We have 10 songs and we like how they sound. And I'm proud of that.
Yeah.
And at least for me, like, it wasn't so much about getting other people to listen to our music as it was like getting from point A to point B and teaching myself that I was capable of getting from point A to point B. And I think that maybe, like I said before, like subconsciously, I definitely think there were pieces of me and like pieces of anybody who even are making music for like the absolute best reasons. Like, there's definitely subconsciously that little bit of like, oh, if people fuck with this, like, you know, I want to be recognized, or I want to be validated for the fact that like, this is sick, because I think this is sick too. And it definitely, like, again, you start buying into that sense of security, that sense of safety. If like, oh, it makes you feel good to know that something that you thought was sick or something that you were moved by also moves other people. Like, that's definitely a validating experience.
Yeah.
But I think when, at least for me, where it started to get messy and where it started to get complicated was when I started to feel like other people's feelings about our music or other people's response to our music was more important than my own.
Right. Yeah.
And starting to doubt my own decisions, and starting to doubt things that I thought were cool. And you can't make good music when you're in that kind of a mindset, or you can't make authentic music when you're in that kind of a mindset. And I think that even though I am like still really proud of Puppy Love, and I still back that record 1,000%. Like, I think maybe that's why it fell flat to a lot of people, and it kind of like falls flat in certain aspects to us too, because like you can hear it in the record that we were worried about what people were going to say. And that doesn't exist in Best Buds.
Right.
Because
yeah.
I was expecting everybody to be like, this band is fucking stupid. Because that's what everybody said. Everybody thought we sucked. We were a modern baseball ripoff band. I get it. Like, they had no reason to think we were anything less than shit. And that was, I don't know. It didn't sound like we were expecting anybody to listen to our music. And I think maybe that's why people connected with it a little bit. And maybe why it kind of had that like bedroom underground resurgence that like made a bunch of kids that maybe shouldn't have started bands want to start bands, you know, because they go, oh shit, like, I can do this too. And I don't know, that to me is how I make peace with it, is the fact that it's like, oh, at least we're kind of inspiring people to maybe like try and play music.
Yeah, definitely. And I want to talk about Puppy Love and talk about like the reception and how you feel about it and all that. But I also want to start at the beginning.
Yeah, sure.
Which is what kind of like, how did you get into alternative and punk music in the first place? And like, how old were you? And when did you pick up a guitar?
Ooh, dang. Okay. So, I mean, I guess like music, I've always been around music. I've always been interested in music. I can't tell you when it started. I think my parents were both really big fans of music, but neither of them were musicians. Neither of them were like musically inclined. My dad has no rhythm. My mom can't keep a note. It's like, yeah, but I was always surrounded by it. And I grew up listening to a lot of what I realize now is like tight ass music. I listened to a ton of ABBA. I listened to a ton of Fleetwood Mac. I listened to a ton of Bare Naked Ladies.
Nice.
I listened to a lot of Stevie
BNL.
Ray Vaughan. Yeah, BNL. I listened to a ton of Stevie Ray Vaughan, and like my dad was a big collector of like live concert DVDs. Like he had like these box sets of like Austin City Limits and you know, like the Fleetwood Mac reunion, and like Blue Man Group and like the Bon Jovi Crush tour. Like I listened to so much Bon Jovi when I was a kid. And just like all of these like massive rock bands and like really culturally like influential artists. And I grew up watching those things just like for fun, like on TV and like on car trips and stuff. Like that was what I listened to. And so it was kind of natural for me, for like my parents to like try and put me in like lessons. So like they tried putting me in guitar lessons and tried putting me in piano lessons. And I just couldn't, I didn't have the attention span for it. When I was younger, like 8, 9, 10 years old, probably. And then my family moved from the Midwest. I lived in Illinois and Wisconsin until I was like 10 years old. My family moved to California. And I started 5th grade, and that's in California. That's when you start music. That's when you start like the band program. And I really wanted to be in band in school, and I picked the trombone for whatever. I remember why I picked the trombone, because like the 5th grade band teacher was like, if you want to be able to get into wind ensemble and jazz band and like all these groups without having to try that hard, pick the trombone, because there's never enough trombone players ever. And I was like, all right, that's I like that. I like the sound of that. So I picked the trombone, and that was all I cared about for probably the next 7 years. Was like, I was a full blown like theater kid band geek. Like that was all I did in middle school and high school. Yeah. So I was in marching band. I like ate, slept, breathed marching band for the entirety of my high school career. Did like winter percussion, all of that stuff. And then when it came time, like through all of that, like I was mostly just listening to jazz music and classical music, because that was my world. That was what I did in school every day. I played trombone pretty much like 4 to 5 hours every day. And then as I started like getting older, I went to high school and I started like actually like hanging out with people a little bit and stopped being like such a shut-in. And these kids in my high school that were in the marching band had a fucking ska band called Costa Nostra.
Oh, of course they did.
And it was like the seniors and the juniors. And it was of course, like it was all the section leaders and all like the important like people from the marching band that like to like 14-year-old freshman me were like the gods of the school. And they had this fucking ska band where they wrote original music. And they were loud and they were crazy and they were ridiculous. And they played a show in the back of a t-shirt store in like downtown Pleasanton where I grew up. And that was my first show. And I was like, this is all I want to do. This is all I want to be a part of. I just want to go to shows.
That
now.
rules.
And I stopped listening. I mean, I kept listening to jazz, but like I started only listening to ska music. Like I only listened to ska. I became obsessed with like Less Than Jake, Real Big Fish, Streetlight Manifesto, like anything that had an electric guitar and a trombone in it. I was obsessed with it. And I just listened to that, and I became obsessed with like starting a ska band of my own and like being in my own band and getting to basically like do what they did. Like somehow like before I was done with high school, like play a show.
So what was your first band then?
It was a ska band. It was a fucking ska band. I sang and I played trombone, and we were horrible. and I don't even want to talk about it because it was really bad. Like there was like the lyrics were like misogynistic. Like we were 14 years old and we listened to Real Big like you can't listen to Real Big Fish and Less Than Jake right now in 2020 and tell me that like the things they say are okay.
Right.
Because you know, and it was like a different time.
And that era was kind of like that. Yeah.
It was a different era, you know, like fucking early 2000s, bro. Like just literally being a shithead for the sake of being a shithead. And I love that. I thought that was cool. I thought that was awesome. And so that was me through high school as I did all that. And as I was finishing high school, like my ska band was ending, I was starting to realize like, oh, wow, like this isn't as cool as I thought it was. Like being in a band is definitely cool and music is definitely cool. But like this genre and this kind of like vibe is not necessarily speaking to me the same way.
You want the energy, but you don't want you want something a little more tasteful maybe.
I not even necessarily more tasteful, but like something with substance. Where like in the same way that like, you know, I don't like people make fun of pop punk because I don't want every song to be about getting drunk and like hating my ex-girlfriend.
Right.
And it's like ska, like I was tired of everything just being like a boob joke. Like you grow up a little bit and you get tired of it. And you know, like, yeah, dick jokes are funny for a while. And like to a certain aspect. And it's not like when you're trying to actually be authentic and like write music that you care about and I guess say something that you want to like actually matter to people. You can't really like pick and choose. Like you can't make a joke out of things. You can't make a joke out of yourself if you want to be taken seriously some of the time. And I realized that, and I decided that like, oh, I'd like to try and be taken a little bit more seriously. Cause then I was looking at Sam and I was looking at his band at the time. And he was like, it was like the proto version of Just Friends, which was a band called Sam Kless Nation. And they were playing shows and he was writing really sincere, emotional, like music that I connected with and that I cared about lyrics all of a sudden, you know, in ways that I didn't before. And so towards like that, at the end of like high school, I was going to college and looking for some new music recommendations. I think I was like on a vacation with my family and I was bored and I was like Facebook messaging Sam. Because we'd become friends from my band playing and like this, my ska band played with like the early version of Sam Kless from JF.
Got it.
He's like the bass player in Mom Jeans now. Like I met him because my ska band played somebody's birthday party and we just like became friends instantaneously and started working together. And I saw the things that like, we weren't in a band together, but we were doing things and our bands were doing things together. And I saw what he was doing and I saw the music that he was writing and the kind of like the group and the art that he was starting to curate for himself that he was finding. And I was really inspired by it and I was really interested. And I was like, dude, like, what are you listening to? You know, like what kind of bands inspire Just Friends? Because I've never heard music like this before. And he was like, dude, like I listen to Say Anything and Joyce Manor. Like those are my two favorite bands.
Good bands.
Yeah. And I was like, all right. So I started listening to like, I fucking put on Alive with the Glory of Love and my life changed.
Hell yes.
Like I put on that song and I was like, what the fuck? And I was hooked on Is a Real Boy. Like I was hooked on that album. And then I was like, oh, what can be better than this? And then I listened to the Joyce Manor self-titled and I was like, holy next level, holy fuck. And I just like, I discovered Bandcamp like that day. And I just started going through like the emo tag and the punk tag and literally clicking on every single record and listening to every single song and just like downloading everything that I could. I think I blew like $200 like just on Bandcamp music.
Wow. Like
on a random day. And I just like sat on the plane from like that vacation and just listened to music. And I remember listening to Sports by Modern Baseball for the first time on the plane. And I just like started sobbing when I heard Tears Over Beers.
Wow.
And like, I wasn't an emotional person. Like I hadn't really started like my journey with like my mental health difficulties or anything yet. So like, that was really new to me. Like I had never had music that made me feel like vulnerable before.
Yeah.
Like in a good way. And so I was just instantly hooked. And like, from that moment on, like Modern Baseball became my favorite band of all time. And I started learning how to play their songs and I started learning. I picked up the guitar again, and I started teaching myself how to play guitar, and I just like started, that became like my thing. It was just going out Bandcamp every day and like searching the emo tag and seeing what new music came out.
Man.
And I wanted to be the first person to listen to anything. I wanted to be the first person to know about anything that was going on around me, about anything that happened.
Dude, that rules. The internet was so dope for that kind of stuff.
Dude, it was so cool. Like Sophie's Floorboard, like the fucking heyday of all that shit. And it was just like, it was so easy.
Was this like early 2010s or like late 2000s?
This is like 2013.
Okay.
My first year of college, like senior year of high school, first year of college, 2013.
Yeah, that's when like I mean, I guess like the Midwest emo revival stuff was kind of petering off a little bit at that point, but definitely
the records that would become the like gold standard of the emo revival were all coming out at that time.
Yeah.
Like Sports was coming out, like Dad's was doing their tour, like Walter Mitty and his Makeshift Orchestra and Tiny Moving Parts.
Hotelier?
And yeah, Hotelier. I saw the Hotelier play to 25 people in a garage in Martinez, California. With a pop punk band.
Yeah,
like
that rules.
Like they played at Chinatown, like Christian Holden played a set like falling asleep off melatonin at Chinatown Youth Center in Fresno. Like I still, like Bart was at that show. Like if you look at that video on YouTube of the Hotelier playing Fresno, like Bart was at that show. And so like all of that stuff was happening, and it was a really, really exciting time to be just like around that. And I was starting college, and Sam and like all these people that I looked up to and like my heroes from my hometown, they were all a couple years older than me. And so they were like in their sophomore, junior, senior year of college, and like really, really getting together musically and like really putting together some cool projects. Like, I don't know if you're familiar with the band Happy Diving.
Sounds familiar, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, so Happy Diving is, you should listen to them. They're really fucking good. It's a band that was started by this guy called Matt Berry, who's like one of Sam's friends. And they were like, they're Third Eye Blind's favorite band.
Really?
So yeah, like the singer from Third Eye Blind loves Happy Diving, and
wow.
they are, in my opinion, still one of the best bands that's ever existed and will ever exist. They're not around anymore. They're not playing shows, but like Matt Yanko from Just Friends was in that band.
I recognize one of these guys.
Kevin Prochnow, the bass player of Just Friends, was in that band. Like real superhero lineup, and like those bands were putting out their demos. And they were playing shows at like Bottom of the Hill to like nobody, and I was going to all shows. Like I remember there was a gig at this place called the Butter Dungeon in Berkeley, like my first year of college, and it was like Just Friends, Happy Diving, Kuroshi, and it wasn't even Kuroshi Boy, it was Zissou, which was a band that later became Kuroshi Boy, which later became Casual Friday, which is a band that's on Counterintuitive now. And so like it was just like all these like superheroes of DIY, at least in my local scene, just like all coming together and just doing stuff. And I was just a spectator. Like I was just the kid that was at the shows, and I just wanted so badly to be a part of it. And I had this feeling like deep in my gut that like I wasn't good enough, and I was never going to be good enough to like join their thing and like do it on their level. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to figure out how to make it work for me. And how to find, I guess, people who, because Happy Diving and Just Friends and those people, they didn't listen to the exact same music that I did. Again, they were all a couple years older, had a little bit more life experience. They weren't straight edge anymore. They were, had different priorities. Right. And I was like freshman in college, like just trying to like party and hang out. And I wanted to find people who were interested in those same things, and using that kind of like watching what my friends were doing and watching what the people I looked up to were doing and kind of seeing how I could apply it to myself. I met Austin, and that just kind of became like the foundation and the basis for everything that I thought music is supposed to be.
Yeah. So you guys started Mom Jeans at that point, or how did?
Yeah, started Mom Jeans at that point. I think we didn't start Mom Jeans. We just started like playing songs together. We just started writing songs together. Yeah, something started. Well, I remember specifically, like, I would go into Austin's room to hang out with his roommate. I mean, like, freshman year of college, you all hang out with your floor mates, right? Like, it's the only people, like, all your friends are people that you know because of circumstance, right? And it's very much in that early beginning stages of university and kind of hanging out with people just because they're around. And I would go into Austin's room to hang out with his roommate to smoke what I was into at the time. And we would, play, like, 2K. and just like hang out. And Austin was a chill dude. I liked hanging out with him, so we would talk. And one day, he was just like playing on his computer, and I saw that he had the album "We'll Get to It Eventually." It was like an EP by this band called Sports on his computer, and I was like, "What the fuck? Like, how do you know about this band?" Because like I said before, like my thing was knowing about bands that nobody knew about, was like listening to like the hometown hero bands from like a small town in Michigan, and like being a fan of that band and stuff. And so the fact that he had heard about this band that I only knew about because a kid I went to high school with was managing their band, the fact that he knew about them, I was like, this is crazy. And I was like, let me look at your tunes. I started, like, he had Joyce Manor, he had Modern Baseball, he had Fireworks, he had Weatherbox.
That's it.
He had all of these bands. And I was just like, dude, what the fuck? And then he was like, and then he showed me Transit. And then he showed me Story So Far. Uh-huh. And then, like, I showed him Just Friends. And I showed him Happy Diving. And it was just like, and yeah, from then on, it was just like, we also connected a lot because Austin is, like, he's an insane multi-instrumentalist. Like, like, he's a savant. Like, he can play fucking anything that he wants to. Mm-hmm. He's better at guitar than I am. He's the best drummer I've ever met in my entire life. He's probably the best trumpet player I've ever met in my entire life. So the fact that he, like, played trumpet in the jazz band and, like, played drums in a rock band and, like, wrote, like, noodly emo licks for us to play in our emo band was just, like, I connected with that a lot. And I was like, this person is just like me. This person, you know, is into the same shit that I'm in. He was also into skateboarding, like, another, like, you bond super fast over that kind of stuff. And it kind of, at least to me, like, as soon as I really started hanging out with Austin, I kind of knew that he was going to be a really important person in my life, mm-hmm. and that I wanted to stick around him, and I wanted to be around him. I wanted to spend time with him. And that if we, you know, kind of like made an attempt to like grow alongside each other, that we could possibly like have a really beneficial relationship. And so we started like writing songs together, and he had like a little recording setup. Like he still has it. It's like his a little Apollo like interface. Like it's out in our living room right now. We recorded like acoustic demos with like a little like microphone and an acoustic guitar and a pair of headphones, and we recorded this like little crappy acoustic EP at the end of our first year of college. And it was all Modern Baseball ripoff songs. Like it was literally Modern Baseball songs that I took the melodies and just like wrote new lyrics for it.
That's crazy.
Because we wanted to play shows,
right?
Like we just wanted to play, because we wanted to get, because we wanted to meet more people. We wanted to find a drummer. Because I wanted Austin to play guitar because I couldn't play guitar good enough, and so we needed to find a bass player. We needed to find a drummer, and so we wanted to play shows to do that, to find people who liked the music that we liked. And so we made this crappy acoustic EP so we could at least like shop it around and just like send it to people. Yeah. Like, this is the band that we're starting.
Yeah, we exist.
Exactly. And it's like nowadays everybody knows better. Like you keep that shit on the voice memos and you don't put it on Bandcamp. Like I got you. I get it. I know better now. But it was like, again, like I was 18 years old, and I didn't think anybody was going to listen to these songs.
Yeah, I've seen you guys get some heat online about the Modern Baseball thing, which is like, whatever, who cares?
Well, I was bummed because like Bren and Jacob were bummed, and I didn't want them to feel like we were trying to profit off of them, because we didn't. And we didn't want to. And like at the end of the day, like I think we found ourselves in the position of being like one of those first bands that really learned the hard way that you can't just like put every demo online.
Yeah.
And you can't, because we weren't thinking about the long term. We weren't thinking about the future. We weren't thinking about one day like playing for even more than 5 people.
Yeah, I think that's normal.
And I think now people like have a bigger scope of the world and a bigger scope of understanding. And as you get older, like you just know better about those things. But at the time, we didn't know.
You get better like impulse control too, because like when you're younger and you make a song and you record it, it's like
you just want to put it out. I just got to show it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's like an instant gratification, which like makes sense when you're 18 and like on drugs. You know, like that's perfect. Exactly. And then we met this other dude who was going to school with us. He was a year older. His name was Josh. Played bass in the jazz band, and it's funny. I met him. I knew who he was because I watched this video of Modern Baseball playing a set at the Dial in Marietta, California, which is a venue that doesn't exist anymore. And there's this kid in the crowd, like in the video, wearing a Cal t-shirt, which is like the school we went to. And I was watching the video. I was like, that dude's in jazz band. Like the jazz band that I play in. And I went up to him the next week in jazz band and I showed him the video. I was like, is this you? And he was like, yeah. And
Wow,
I was like, do you want to be in our band? And I sent him the demo and he was like, yeah. And he ended up not staying in the band because we weren't title fight. But, that shit happens. Like he works for Pandora now and he's like, cool dude. It's
That's
like
a pretty
weird.
cool story though.
Yeah. And one of my homies from high school ended up like being our drummer for a little bit, and we took those acoustic songs and we recorded them as a full band. I played guitar and sang, Austin played guitar, our friend Matt played drums, and Josh played bass. And then it just like from there everything changed from that point on, except for Mom Jeans was just like me and Austin. And so we operated under that for like I think like almost 2 or 3 years, just like playing shows at our college and like not really doing anything or being anything, putting out any kind of music. Because at that point, the only music that we had out were modern baseball ripoffs. And at that point, we sent it out to people. We're like, oh, you want to book us a show? And when they were like, no, fuck you. Your band sucks. You're just ripping off other people. And so we didn't record anything or like put anything out until we had music that we really thought was our own and was like actually original, that we could stand behind as being original. And that eventually became Best Buds.
Okay, so in between doing the modern baseball rip, you realize this isn't working and you start writing your own songs for Best Buds. Well,
I mean, the goal was always to write our own songs. Like that was always the end goal, to write original music and to be in that. But I think I saw those modern baseball songs as like a kind of shortcut, as like this is a way to show people what we sound like. And like, this is what the songs that we're working on are going to be like. And when we play live, like this is the vibe that we're going to get. Because like we don't have original songs right now because we're working on it. So
at what point
we want to play them live to work on them.
Did you guys start gaining traction?
What was that?
Did you guys start gaining traction before Best Buds came out as you were playing shows?
Not at all.
After?
No. Way after, probably 6 months after.
Okay. So tell me about how Best Buds was recorded and like what was going on then.
Cool. So we kind of like, we'd been doing this like band thing for like two years, I guess. And we had just been playing shows like at our college, just like playing shows at frats, like playing shows at co-ops, just like essentially like trying to get like beer money. And it was fun and it was cool. And this was around the time that Just Friends put out Rock to the Rhythm, which was their like first LP. And like, I still remember like the day that album came out, like I was sitting in my room. It was summer in between my sophomore and junior year of college, I think, or my junior and senior. I can't remember. But I was sitting in my room at like the fucking frat house that I was like renting a room in Berkeley. And I listened to the album and I could not believe that people that I knew had made a record. Like I just couldn't wrap my head around it. Like I was so moved. And if you listen to that album, the last song, Just Friends is never going to play any of these songs again, but the last song on that album is called Dublin, California. And Sam has this like little speech that he does like during the trombone solo at the end. And he was just like, this one, it goes out to our family, everybody who never thought we could do this. Like, this one's for you. Like, we fucking did it, baby. And it's like the end of the movie, like the credit scene, and the big cheer. I was just like that, hearing that changed my life and being like, holy shit, like you can do that. I didn't know you could do that was possible. And I was just like, I was really inspired and I was really motivated, and Austin felt the same way. And I was just like, dude, this is what I want to do. And like nobody was listening to Just Friends. Like nobody was paying attention to that band. I saw what they did. I saw the record that they made and that they were going to go on a tour and say, fuck it and try it out. And I was just like, that's what I want to do. I want to make a record because I didn't know that we could do that. I want to make a record and I want to go on a tour. Two things that I previously thought were completely impossible for somebody like me to do. And that became our goal. And that was, I think that was the beginning of our junior year of college, third year of school. And we were just like, we had a handful of songs. I think maybe we had like half of the album written, and it wasn't like we were consciously writing for an album. Like we were just writing songs and like build, kind of like a stand-up comedian does. Like we were just like building a set, kind of.
Yeah.
Just like, you know, 1 song, 2 song, 3 song, 5 songs, and we eventually had like 7 or 8 songs, and a couple of the old modern baseball songs. And we were like, all right, fuck it, like let's record some songs and do it. And I think we had a day where Austin and I like demoed out some stuff, and again, like at home, like very bedroom style. And we were pretty happy with the songs, and we realized that like we could, if we just like got rid of everything that was even closely reminiscent to like being inspired by another band or like related to another band, like we could make an album that maybe not, I don't know, not that it like compared to like Rock to the Rhythm, but was like on the same tier as far as like originality and like artistry. And I think we made the conscious decision that like we wanted to do that. And, you know, through this time we had met Bart by this point. By playing shows with his old band, Meet Me in Montauk. We had become closer friends with Just Friends by this point. We'd been introduced to Ryan by this point, just because we were all kind of just like playing shows together and going to each other's shows. Yeah, Ryan Ellery,
the producer.
And yeah, Ryan engineered and mixed all of Rock to the Rhythm. And so we started talking to Ryan, and we were like, Ryan would maybe be interested in helping us make a record. And at that time, I don't think Ryan had really made a record on their own before. They were working at, and I don't want to say, because this may not be factual, so I don't want to speak for Ryan, but Ryan was working at the Panda Studios at the time, like working under Sam Pura, and was essentially like not getting treated super well, and was kind of, you know, at the liberty of the studio as to what they could do and what they were able to accomplish. And we really wanted to give Ryan, like we saw what Ryan did with Rock to the Rhythm, and we said, hey, can we kind of like scale this down maybe and do like 1 day at the studio just to get the drums sounding really, really nice, and like make the rest of the album at your house, because he had a console and like a record recording kind of like mini setup at his dad's house. And Ryan was like, yeah, sure, let's try it out. So we booked 1 day at Panda Studios, and we recorded all of the drums and all of the bass for Best Buds.
Wow.
One day. Austin did the drums for Best Buds in 2 hours.
Holy crap.
Yeah,
that's wild.
It was unreal. And I mean, we didn't know any better. We were just trying to save money, because it was like, we were like, oh, and we didn't even use the nice room, bro. We used the tiny, crappy room at Panda East that we could get for $150 a day. We borrowed Sam Pura's bass amp without asking. And used that to DI all of Gabe's bass, and and we just did that. And then we finished that day. We finished that day, and it was funny when we were like, all right, so this is great. Like, we got so much more done than we thought we were going to get done today. Like, and this was, I think, like 2nd or 3rd week of February in 2016. And Ryan was like, well, I'm busy till April. Like, I'm booked. I have sessions. Like, we didn't talk about booking in advance. Like, so we had to sit on those drum and bass tones for like 2 months.
Damn.
And I just practiced along to that, because I knew I was shit at guitar. And I did all of the guitars on Best Buds. And that was really scary for me, really hard. And so I just practiced to those for like 2 months. And then we came back and we recorded guitars in I think like 2 or 3 days at Ryan's house. And then we recorded all of the vocals in like a day at Ryan's house. And then we sat in Ryan's room for another 3 or 4 days and mixed the record. Like, me and Austin sat there and mixed it with Ryan. Just told them what to do, basically. Told them how to press the buttons, what we wanted it to sound like. Wow. And at the end, and Ryan sent it off and got it mastered by James Travaskis for like $10 a song. And I think we spent $1,100 in total.
Wow.
Making Best Buds.
That's
start to finish.
That's great.
Like 3 or 4 sessions, yeah. And all of that wasn't even really, like, of that $150 was paying for a room. Like, all the rest of it was Ryan's time and James's time. And yeah, it's crazy.
how soon after does it release after you've recorded it?
So I think we got our masters back in June.
Was there any
And
sort of like intention or like did you understand like album cycles at that point, or you just like you get it back and
fuck
put it
no.
out? Did you even
Fuck no.
tour?
It was I mean, we were like, all right, we got an album, so like let's book a tour. Like let's try to book a tour. So I booked a tour. Like Bart helped me book a really bad, like through like 2 week tour where half the shows dropped. And we missed half the shows because our van broke down. Like
Nice.
classic.
Yep.
But like we did it. Like I mean, at that point, like we weren't thinking about an album rollout because like dog, we'd accomplished the goal.
Yep.
Like we did it. We had the album and we were going on the tour. Like there was nothing else to do. Like who? Like I don't thinking about like who was going to listen to it. Like we were done. The goal was accomplished. And that's what like some people might, I don't know, I don't want them to get offended when I say like everything that this band does is like gravy for me, because like that was the only goal that I ever had for Mom Jeans, was to put out that album and go on that tour. And we did that in June of 2016.
So where
Yeah.
is the connection between releasing it and it becoming popular and touring a lot? Like what in my mind I'm not making like the connection of the in between space there, you know?
Yeah, I mean, me neither. We just wanted to do it. So like I think it wasn't like, as far as like listenership and like fans and people like liking our music, we had nothing. We just had friends. We had people that we had met. We had bands that we had put up. We had people that we had booked shows for, played for. We were kind of like the embodiment of that band where like you hate their music, but like you fuck with them as people. So you always see them. And like that's always been, you know, big guiding principle for like me like meeting bands and stuff. I'm like, honestly, I don't care what your band sounds like as long as you're cool.
Yeah.
Right. And we'd always tried to be really nice people and like really accommodating and really attentive and really present whenever we meet people, and like really try to listen and find out how to validate them and how to validate their art. And so when it came time for us to book a tour and it came time for us to like ask people to basically, you know, like do us a solid, we had 10 or 15 people that were willing to book us a show and see how it went. And I think every single one of those shows, the album had been out for maybe like 2 weeks. I think the album released on July 4th, 2016. And I think a week or two later, we went on the tour. And the most people that we played for on any given night on that tour was probably 15 people. And we just played places that Just Friends had played. We played places that Meet Me Montauk played. We played like Bellingham, Washington. We played a house show in Portland. We played in Redding, California. We played like 5 Bay Area shows. Like it was ridiculous. Played Santa Rosa. We played Stockton. Like we played every town that we could think of where someone that we knew had a band and would be willing to book the show. And we just did that because we wanted to, because I wanted to be like, I was watching tour documentary. I was FaceTiming Sam while he was on tour with Just Friends, and I wanted to be there and I wanted to experience that. And I guess I hadn't mentioned this. Like I had gone on tour before with Just Friends, filling in and playing trombone in their band. So this is where that's where that drive of like, oh, I can do this, like this is possible, came from.
Yeah.
And so I basically took all those experiences that I had with Just Friends of like literally like I called myself the Me Too, because I was like, me too, like I want to go. You guys are going to this, like you guys are driving down to LA for the weekend to play a show, like me too, like can I come? Space in the van, like let me go. And I took all those experiences and all those things that I learned from Sam and from JF and applied them. And we had on paper a horrible tour, but I had the time of my fucking life.
Yeah. At what point did you start
driving across? What was that?
Go ahead. Driving across.
I was going to say it was like driving across California in the dead of July in like a 30-year-old van with no air conditioning that's overheating. Like it sucked, but it was awesome because we were doing the thing for real and nobody had helped us.
Right. Yeah. So at what point did you start noticing your audience growing?
I think so. While we were on that tour, that summer tour in July, we broke down in Bellingham, Washington, and we were waiting to get our van fixed. And Bart was not in our band at the time, but he was still playing with Meet Me in Montauk, and he was starting to make music as Grad Life. And we had been talking about trying to do a Mom Jeans and Meet Me together. Like we really, really wanted to do that. Thought it would be really fun. And so we thought about trying to, make that happen. And we had been booking a tour, like basically like a 2-week tour that was essentially the same route that we were currently doing, but just with two Mom Jeans and Meet Me in Montauk. We're going to go to Vegas, which we hadn't gone to before, and we're going to go to Phoenix, which we hadn't gone to before, just like spread out a little bit. And we were booking that while we were doing the first tour. And because we had such a good time on our first tour, like we had so much fun that we just wanted to go on tour again. Mm-hmm. And like playing to 5 people every night, like that was fine. Like I was Gucci because we came home and I think we each lost like $50. And I was like, that's fucking worth it. Like I would have spent more than $50 if I was at home for 2 weeks. Uh-huh. So we booked that tour immediately when we got home, and we're down to do it. We took like a week off of school and just like said fuck it and just wanted to go on tour for fun, just like as a little vacation for us. And on that tour, there were people there. There were like people at the shows. Like we played Program in Fullerton, and it was like packed. Huh. And we played in Phoenix for like the first time ever, and there's like 35 people there. And we played Salt Lake City, Utah to like 50 people, and which Mom Jean still has trouble drawing 50 people to Salt Lake City. like it was crazy. And at that time, like we weren't expecting anything like that. Like we were just going because we thought we were going to have fun and play some shows. And it was like, we got there and all of a sudden there was like people there. And at that time I kind of rationalized it as like, well, we're playing better bands, we have better friends. We've been here once before. Mm-hmm. So maybe, we're making an impression. I didn't realize it because people were listening to our album. And around that time, I think maybe getting back from that tour, Bart had been working with Counterintuitive Records and talking to Jake. And Jake was pressing the Grad Life EP and was putting that out on tapes. And Bart sent Jake the Mom Jeans record, and Jake offered to press Best Buds on vinyl. Uh-huh. And kind of the rest is history.
So did it
catch by on? That point, it was all around that same time. I think maybe even Jake was the one who posted Best Buds to like our Listen to This. Yeah. But somebody posted like the full, because when we did this, like I made sure that we got everything on Spotify and on Bandcamp and like on SoundCloud and whatnot, just because like I've always been a believer that if you're going to make an album, put it out, like you'd at least put it on every platform that you can, because nobody's going to listen to it if they can't find it. Yeah. Right? Like you should make it as easy as possible. You should make it as accessible as possible to be able to find your music if they want to. That's just a belief that I have. And through doing that, we realized that like a lot of people were finding it, and like there was a full album stream on YouTube, a YouTube video, and like somebody posted 100.
Broke up
and that was crazy, and that was insane. That was like at that point, that was more people than I ever thought would ever listen to our band.
Yeah. So at some point, it like catches on Reddit and 4chan. Were you keeping track of that kind of scene at that point? Were you online looking at those?
I didn't know
boards?
I didn't know what our emo was. I've never been a Reddit person. I have difficulty like with things that like aren't tangible. Like I need to be able to hold shit in my hands for me to be able to wrap my brain around it. So like Reddit and like message boards and kind of like these like Discord like server type things have never made a whole lot of sense to me, because it's really hard for me to like pick out who's saying what. Right. But it was, you don't have to understand how Reddit works to like know when something's popping off on Reddit. Yeah. Right. And it was clear that it was popping off on Reddit. And like I was in school. I was like going to college, and I was like in, and like Jake from CI was like texting me and stuff. And I think this was around the same time when the Mom Jean, like when the Best Buds vinyl pre-orders were getting announced. And so it's really interesting because like Jake didn't even like hit us up as in like, oh, like Mom Jeans is getting popular, I want to press this record and like try and make money off of it. That wasn't the vibe at all. Like Jake loved our album. Mm-hmm. He tells me to this day, like Best Buds, like I'm proud of the fact that Best Buds is one of his favorite albums. Mm-hmm. And he put it out because he heard it and he believed in it. And like, again, like that's a guiding principle for me and the people that I work with. I want to work with people who like believe in us and believe in our music, or not believe in the number. And it was clear that when the vinyl pre-order like got announced, like Jake was surprised, like he was shocked. I think we sold out of test presses like in an hour, and we sold, I think, like 100 or 200 records on like the first day, like pre-sold 100 or 200 records on the first day of it being up, which was like unheard of because it was like a 250 record press. So we essentially almost sold out like the first press of Best Buds like as it happened.
Yeah, that is
and that was kind of
insane.
That was kind of the moment where it was like, oh shit, this might be a thing. And then again, like we had another tour booked because like every time we did a tour, like when we got home, we booked the next tour. That's what we did because we liked going on tour so much and we just wanted to have that fun. And so we had another tour coming up and it was our first full US tour. Because that was, again, like, that was the next step for us. It was like, okay, well, we did the West Coast and, like, that's cool and we didn't die. So, like, I want to go to Philly. I want to go to the Mecca. Like, I want to go to Texas. I want to go to Michigan. I want to play in Illinois. Like, I want to go to these places and I want to go meet these bands that I've been listening to for 3-4 years and, like, go be friends with them. And so we booked, like, a full U.S. tour with that band Sports that I mentioned, like, a while back. And they became like really good friends. Like we did that tour, and on that tour, it became increasingly clear that like it wasn't slowing down and that things were just like kind of getting more ridiculous. Like I printed all of our own merch for that tour, like myself at home. Like I bought a shirt press and like I made all of our own merch, and we sold out of the merch that I made for the whole tour on the second day. And we had to like buy shirts on the road and buy merch and do all this stuff that we got told wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
You know, people were literally telling us like, don't buy too many shirts.
Yeah. I mean,
don't buy too many tapes.
This is one thing, you know, if people like don't give you credit for the music, they have to give you credit for doing something that just doesn't happen anymore in the music industry, which is like starting from scratch and growing a grassroots audience that supports you and buys all of your shit. Like buying all of your vinyl records at that capacity just doesn't happen, but it did for you guys.
Yeah. And I think maybe if like thinking about like kind of what you were saying a little bit earlier and kind of like having this to like show people your music and wanting to have them respond to it, I think we had a very like, I guess like niche kind of attitude where we would show up and it was like, yo, if you don't like this band, like fine. Like I don't care. Mm-hmm. But we had this attitude of just like, just give us a chance, bro. Mm-hmm. Just like literally listen to the first song. Mm-hmm. Just like stand there and listen to the first song. And if you hate it, go outside and smoke a cigarette and I will never hold it against you. I'll pack up my shit and I'll go and I'll never come back.
Do you think that attitude kind of like played a part in your stage presence? Because you guys always had and still do have a very energetic, you know, commanding stage presence.
No, at the time I was extremely uncomfortable and super quiet and like vulnerable and like really? I still kind of like, for me, like the jumping around and being loud and crazy on stage is a defense mechanism, because like I ultimately don't feel comfortable with that many people watching me. Mm-hmm. And I feel like if I do something that is active and animated, then they're not thinking about what's going on in my head. They think they know what I'm thinking, and it's a lot easier for them, and it's a lot more comfortable. And then rather than, I guess, like trying to dive into my mindset or like get in my head, like people just kind of accept what's happening in front of them. Mm-hmm. Tour, like we would kind of show up and we'd be like, hey, we're this band Mom Jeans. Like, we're really stoked to be here. Like, I never thought that this would ever happen. Like, we are just fucking hyped. Like, I hope you like our music. If not, that's cool. Like, let's smoke a J afterwards. Like, I want to meet you. And like, I just friends. And it seemed to like work with people and it seemed to respond. And like looking back, we got to play with a lot of really, really awesome bands. Like we played like our first show in Brooklyn was with Nervous Dater and Max Seal. Like that's fucking super sick. You know, we played in Chicago with like Sports. We just played a lot of like really cool places, and like we played Killer's Tacos in like Denton, Texas, and had like 100 there, which is like not something that had ever happened there. And it was, I don't know, it just felt special, and it felt like that people really, really want. And I think maybe because I had been raised, at least seen in California, I had been raised being super like viscerally aware of the fact that people don't owe you shit. Mm-hmm. People do not have to listen. Yeah. If you aren't good, sit the fuck down and make space for somebody who is.
Yeah, yeah.
Because like that's just the Cali Bay Area mentality. And I've seen so many bands that changed the way that I think about music and the way that I interpret playing the guitar, who never got their day. And I'm sure you feel the same way about Michigan bands. I'm sure Philly people feel the same way about Philly bands. Like, every individual scene has their own, graveyard of fallen heroes that never got. But California has almost been like the capital of that for me. Bands like Summer Vacation, like bands like Lear, like bands like Blowout, like all these Lauren Records bands, and like Walter Mitty and his makeshift, they still haven't gotten their fucking day.
Yeah,
and
it's wild.
People that have never gotten the like Diners still hasn't gotten their effort. Like, all these people that inspired me to start writing this music, like, they never had their day, and their music is incredible. Their art
Why do you think that is
fantastic.
That they
because people are dumbasses, and honestly, like, nobody knows how this works. Like, I don't even know how this Mom Jeans thing works. Like, it really just happens. I can't tell you why people respond to like our band and don't respond to others. Like, I don't understand it. It doesn't make sense to me. It makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
A lot of the time. And I think being super aware of that, knowing that nobody has to be here, I like going and playing those shows, and the fact that there was like 10 people in the state of that could have been anywhere that night, and they decided to be in like this sweaty basement, like, was called Mom Jeans, and they were singing along. That was the other thing too. It's like, people were singing along. Like, they weren't just standing there. They were singing along. They knew the music. And that was not something that I had really expected or experienced before. And it was kind of, it felt like something special was happening, and not because it was clarity or because there was there. I felt like it was special because there was anybody. Oh, sorry, but it felt special because nobody had to be there at all, and that enough was a reason to keep touring and to keep trying to play shows. And they just got bigger, and every time we came back to a city, there was more people there, and it slowly started to get to the point where we couldn't just like wing it anymore. We had to start expecting. We couldn't sell ourselves short. We couldn't like underdog ourselves, because it was affecting people's ability to have fun, and it was affecting people's safety.
Yeah, I mean, that's like a weird responsibility to have, to like care about people's like physical safety at your show.
And that's something that I've always been like, people can talk shit on us for that. Like, a lot of young kids, we have like a pretty young crowd, and in a way, like, I'm proud of that, because I think that young kids are like a really great litmus test, like what's cool and what's exciting and what's interesting. Sure. And the same token of that is, like, I remember being that kid. Like, we talked about me being at that first show. Still there?
Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about me being at that first show, and experiencing that, and I kind of had a wake-up call where I realized that, like, we are that band for some of these kids, where this is their first show that they've ever been to. And I think if I had been treated differently, and if people had not cared about my safety, and if people had not cared about me having a good time and me learning how to take care of the people around me in that environment, I may not have been drawn to it in the way that I. Because, like, the ska scene and like being in those shows, like, it wasn't the music that really drew. It was the energy. Mm-hmm. It was the sense of community. And if people hadn't really like tried to share that with me or be gentle with that with me, like, I may not have ever become a musician, or it may not have ever really tried. And I feel that sense of responsibility to just try and make things safe and try and make things comfortable, and try and show, I guess, a kid who might be going to their first show at a Mom Jeans gig, like, what I think their first show is supposed to be like.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's really important, and I think that's very cool that you recognize that as like a important thing. What point does Puppy Love start forming in your mind as like the next thing to do? And like, what was the intention behind it, and like, what were your thoughts going into that process?
Honestly, it was really, it was all best buds all the time. Like that was the only thing. Like it was just tour, 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 tour. That was the only thing that I thought about for the entirety of 2016, the entirety of 2017. I just wanted to play shows. I wanted to play shows with bands that I liked. I wanted to play shows with new bands, with old bands. I wanted to try and get on a tour with a band that like I looked up to. Like it was literally just all about trying to play as many shows as possible. And I wasn't really thinking about new music or like writing. Like we put out that split with Grad Life as kind of just like, you know, a fun little like thing that we were doing on the side as like new songs that Austin and I have been working on. But I didn't really like, I honestly, I didn't have a reason to write in a way because like the reason I wrote Best Buds was so we could put out an album and go on a tour. And like we had the album when we were, and we didn't need another album to be able to do that. And Best Buds alone was giving us like a lot of traction. Like we did a lot touring on that album. Like in a way, it feels like we're still kind of touring on that album.
Yeah.
And so Puppy Love kind of just became this thing that I had and that we had to write.
Right. It's like you open your eyes one day and it's like, oh shit, we got to write another album, I guess. People want another album.
Well, and to be honest, like I got caught up and I got like for a long time, like it's kind of embarrassing to say, but like other bands that were and are in the same realm as Mom Jeans as far as just like size, like made me feel intimidated. It made me feel insecure. Like no hate to Eric and Steven, but like it made me feel insecure that so well. Because in a way it makes you feel like, you know, well, if people start caring about Remo Drive a lot, like maybe they won't have time to care about my band.
Wait,
and,
can you repeat?
If we end up,
can you repeat Eric and who?
Eric and Steven from Remo Drive.
Okay, sorry, I broke up as you were saying that.
Oh, it's all good. But yeah, Eric and Steven Paulson, like super, super nice guys, like really incredible musicians, great band. You know, like seeing them be successful, like in a way, it made me feel insecure because like they were feel like, you know, you buy into this idea that there's space in the music scene.
Limited
there's only
space,
enough,
yeah.
like mental capacity. Yeah, and honest with you, like that's not true. There's room for it. And if you feel insecure by another band, use it as fuel. Go home and practice. Use it as motivation to write better songs. You waste your energy trying to take that space away from the other bands.
Yeah, use it as fuel.
I was
I was
getting insecure.
You got to use it as fuel. You got to like ignore it when it comes up and realize, oh, I got to do the opposite and be supportive, even if it feels like I don't want to. And then the third thing that I've been trying to tell people lately, and something that I realized not long ago, was that there's no need to be insecure or jealous or anything, because the playing field isn't even. You know, it's not like everybody starts with the same resources or the same network, or, you know, it's like not an even playing field. So it's like, of course somebody might be further or more successful than you, and it doesn't mean that you suck. You know, there's so many reasons for it. Yeah,
I think, and I allowed myself to get like see what a lot of these other bands that were doing, like, and honestly, it's kind of as basic as just the fact that like bands that had put out albums around the same time as we had put out Best Buds were starting to put out other albums. They were starting to put out LP2. They were starting to put out LP3. Like, not a great name drop, but like at the time, like Pine Grove was like the golden children of DIY. And they were putting out albums like crazy. You know, like Prince Daddy was working on another album. Like all bands like were just like really starting to put out a lot of music and a lot of really good music. And I felt insecure about the fact that like Best Buds was the only thing that we were standing on, and we were getting tired of playing the songs. We were getting tired of like, I'm still tired of playing Death Cup. Like, I'm going to play it, but like, is it what I look forward to doing when we go up and play a set? Like, not at all. And so we were getting tired of playing the same songs. Like, everybody was starting to get a little bit bored, and there was kind of like, then we started talking to Side One Dummy, and like Jamie and Side One like started becoming part of the discussion, and they wanted to talk to us. And then it was like, all of a sudden these people had interest in us for our next album, but we had never even thought about what the next album was or what it was going to be. So the like Puppy Love really became a thing before we wanted it to, and before I even like really needed it to become a thing. And it just started becoming this like weird enigma of like, we have to have LP2 and like, we need to have it. And to a certain extent, like it basically got to the point where it's like, we can't tour again. We can't headline again until we have a new album, which is, I'm learning now, like that's called an album cycle. Like that's what you do. But we had never conceptualized an album cycle before because Best Buds wasn't put out with that intention. And now we kind of like found ourselves like under these new contexts and this new kind of way of operating. And we never sat down and like thought about it and talked about what we wanted as a band. Because like, again, we were like 21 years old and just trying to enjoy the ride. And like I said before, talking about money and talking splits and all that stuff, like it makes me uncomfortable. Like I just want to focus on playing shows.
It really is a game, isn't it? I mean, the album cycle idea.
It's a fucking game. It's game.
Like there are these rules, and like you got to follow these rules if you want to participate. And it's not about just natural art, organic, whatever happens. It's like, it's an industry.
Exactly. And so Side One became part of the picture, and we were looking at signing like 50-50 deal with Side One Dummy. And like we were going to be giving up streaming money, which is something we'd never done before. We were going to be, splitting profits with like a record label in a way, because like we own streaming like digitally. Like I do not give up my streaming. Like that is my bar none. We don't do that. I don't think anybody should do that. That's just like a belief that I have. And
yeah, I remember you telling me that like the streaming...
And Side One wasn't down with that. They weren't down with that. And it was this really, really weird. And again, it became this conversation of stability. The idea of signing to a record label, of having somebody that was going to make sure that your album sold, that was going to make sure that they got their fucking invested, so you were going to get some too. The idea of that, it provided this like kind of semblance of security. And like, again, we didn't know what we were doing. We about it. I didn't think about money. I didn't want to make an LLC. I didn't want to corporatize. I didn't want to hire people. I didn't want to do taxes. I didn't want to do any of that shit. I just wanted to play shows. I just wanted to gig. And so we were like, all right, yeah, we'll sign to Side One Dummy. Like, sure, sounds good. We're kind of dragging our feet on the paperwork, and then one day, just like Side One Dummy collapsed, and just like stops being a label.
Why did I not hear about that?
That it was. They were really quiet about it. And honestly, like to this day, nobody really knows what happened.
Wow.
But essentially, like all I needed to know and all I needed to hear was that like Jamie Coletta and Christina Johns got fired. They got laid off. And those were the people that I wanted to work with. Those were the people that I trusted. Jamie was going to be like our point person, was going to roll out our album for us. Christina was going to do all of the art, was going to do all the merchandise. And then, yeah, there was another person too, Kevin, who was going to handle basically like stuff. And I liked those people. We had met with those people. That was our crew. That was our team. And the owners fired them on a whim one day. Like Jamie went into work thinking that she was going to work one day and just like got laid off. And it's not really like my place to know because there's like, we hadn't signed our contract yet. And so we kind of got out of the whole thing scot-free.
Yeah. You dodged a bullet.
Yeah, we dodged a huge bullet. Luckily, like they agreed to pay Henderson's lawyer fees. Like Henderson Cole, like was doing our negotiation, was like helping us with our legal stuff. So they paid our legal fees for the thing that we had been, discussing contract for amicable. I believe that a lot of the artists that were on Side One got their stuff like that. But it boiled down to the fact as like we were going to have all this support behind LP2. We were going to have all of this money. We were going to have, we weren't going to have to pay for it ourselves. We were going to get handed a check for $10,000 to go do whatever we wanted with it, with Ryan in the studio and go crazy. And all of that like stopped being and it stopped existing, like essentially overnight.
So we still had to.
So we had to rework the plan, and so the plan became all gas, no brakes. Get out, write an album, write 10 songs as fast as you fucking can, learn them and record them as fast as you fucking can, and get it out and on the road as fast as you fucking can, and as cheaply as you can. And that's what we had to do, and that's what we did. And I still think that, like, I don't know, looking at the circumstances that we were under, like, Puppy Love is 100% like the best album. Like, it's the best album we could have made at the time. And I'm not embarrassed by that at all. And I know that people still like those songs.
Were you happy with it when it first came out? Like,
yeah, I was super happy with it. Absolutely.
Are you?
Because it's like, I was the only one that I was trying to please. Yeah, absolutely, dude. That album bangs, bro.
Yeah, I like it.
Tight.
I think it's
like
good.
Austin, like, we got some of the best drum tones that I think have ever been accomplished on like a self-recorded record. Like, I'm so proud of the fact that, like, and it encompasses like such an important time in my life, at least from like a writing perspective. And there's so many things about that album that were like firsts for us that we had never really thought about before. And that we tried new things, and we aimed for a level of quality on Puppy Love that we didn't even know existed with Best Buds. And I'm super proud of us for like trying. I don't know that it all hit the mark. I know from at least my contributions, like the songwriting aspect, I didn't do as good of a job as I could have. Obviously, like, not everything hit the way that I thought that it would, and the way that it hits for me. But like, that's what happens when you make an album for yourself and then share it with people. And I think I failed to like really decide whether or not I was making an album for myself or whether I was making an album for the people who liked our band. And I think I refused to decide. And I think it falls in a little bit of a middle ground. And I think that's why it's hard to wrap your head around for some people.
Yeah.
Because I think Best Buds, like, I know bar none, that album was written for me. I can say that with 100% certainty. I didn't write that album for anybody else. Puppy Love, I can't really say that. I know that I was influenced by thinking what other people were going to have to say about it. And I don't know, moving forward, going in the future, I've learned that, like, for me to be happy and for me to, I guess, be comfortable putting out music in the future, like, me and my band are the only people that I want to impress and the only people I want to think about.
I think that's a good move. I don't want to open any wounds, but did you see what Anthony Fantano said about it?
I did, yeah. I mean,
how does that type of stuff make you feel?
It makes me feel defensive, because what I want to say to that is just like, dude, check the streaming numbers, bro. Like, all right. Like, more people have listened to my songs than have watched his videos.
Yeah.
Or at least, you know, like, on a case-by-case basis. But at the end of the day, like, I don't know, that dude makes money by talking shit on people. So I it's not really, like, he's not a real person. And, like, if I ever met him, like, I'd tell him he's a piece of shit to his face and probably be all petty. But, like, ultimately, I don't know, you can't let that, like, influence you. Yeah. And I think for a long time, like, all of us are guilty of this, myself and Austin especially, like, we refused to kind of, like, stand our ground. We tried to care a little bit about what people are saying.
Yeah.
Like, we read the comments and we bought into the shit that people were talking. And you can't really do that.
Right.
Like, you really can't. Like, I think there's a level of self-awareness, and you have to make sure that you're being ethical and you're being responsible. And I think having people that you trust to be like a litmus test for that is super important. But those people are not the kids on Twitter commenting on your photos. Those kids are not it's not the people that follow you on Instagram.
Yeah.
Or the people that comment on the YouTube videos that can be that litmus test for you. Like, it needs to be your friends, it needs to be your family, it needs to be the people that you trust. And, like, for me, those people are like Corey from P Daddy and Jade and Sam, and, like, artists that I look up to and I respect. And I say, I'm willing to be vulnerable and ask, you know, like, I feel weird about this thing or this decision that I'm making, you know, like, what is your opinion? Not going on our emo and seeing what, like, the fucking Dorito fingers kids have to say.
Yeah, for sure. That's super difficult, and I think the critical reception side of the biz is very scary. But I think you guys, you know, what matters is your fans liked the album, and you like the album, and who gives a fuck what anybody else has to say.
Exactly, and at least for me, at the end of the day, like, we're the ones that have to play the song. We're the ones that have to do the tours. We're the ones that we're the ones that have to live with our name attached to this stuff. Like we're the ones that own it. And so ultimately, like, as long as we're happy and we're, you know, I feel like it ultimately just becomes this like decision that you have to make, and you have to realize like what's important, and you have to understand that, you know, you just have to do things, for yourself, and have to feel like, you know, I don't know, that you know who you are, you know what your purpose is, and you have to stay true. And I think sometimes I allow myself to like lose sight of that, and to buy into this, you know, these alternate ideals. And it's like nobody's perfect, and it's really challenging to, you know, keep a straight head. But I know that I have people to always bring, and I try to use that as like a guiding principle. It helps me most of the time.
I think you're doing a great job, man. I don't know how I would handle the, like, I don't know, popularity on that level where it's like almost like a love-hate thing that you guys have, where a lot of kids love you and then a lot of people, like, you know, snub their nose at you. So I don't know. I think you guys are doing a pretty good job with all said and done.
Yeah. And I mean, at the end of the day, it is what it is. And like, I'm still walking my shoes. So like, I need to make decisions that I know I'm going to be happy with. And ultimately, like, I know that I'm a good person, and I know that I don't want anybody. Yeah. And I think, yeah, that's just a part of it, is knowing that for yourself. And it's a process, and it comes every day. And I think, at least for me, like, it used to make me feel scared, and it used to make me feel like I was never, but like kind of leaning into that and accepting that, in the past like years, really empowering. Ultimately, it means that I can't really maybe connect with people the way that they connect, but I still can connect with people in some way.
I don't want to take up all your time, but what's up with the new album? I heard it's called Sweet Tooth. Is it still called Sweet Tooth?
I'd like to call it Sweet Tooth. That's what we're all referring to it, for now. Yeah, it's just, I don't know. I want to put out another album, obviously. Like, I want to have music. We got songs, but as before, like, I'm trying to really not let any outside influence, like, dictate what that record is going to sound like. And for me, that means it's a slow process. We've completely changed, the way that we write now. Like Sam's in the band now, which is awesome. In the past, it's really like Mom Jeans has been me writing the songs. Like, Austin will come up with a chord progression or like a skeleton or whatever, but like I'll write the lyrics and come up with a subject structure. That's how Best Buds operated. That's how Puppy Love operated. This time, like, everybody is writing. Like, Bart has written songs for the album. I have written songs for the album. Sam has written songs for the album. Austin has written songs for the album.
Wow, that's interesting.
Not only that, but every song that I've written has had to be approved by the rest of the band, which is not something that I've ever been okay with before. And Bart and Sam have a lot more input than they've ever had before. Like, really, like, Bart had control, like, his on Puppy Love. Like, I would be like, I want you to play a riff here, and you can play whatever riff you want. But it was still dictated, you know? And we're also focusing a lot less on a piece of sound for, like, the band or for the album. Like, we're trying to the song, like, each individual song the best that it can, which is not something that we've ever done. We've the album straight through.
Is it like a similar sound and genre, or are you guys experimenting more? Or
it's not going to sound anything like what people have heard from us before, and maybe it will. I don't know. It's interesting because it doesn't sound like Best Buds at all. It does not sound like Puppy Love at all, but it still sounds like Mom Jeans to me, which is hard to describe. And ultimately, like, I won't really try to. Like, I hope they like it. It's, at the end of the day, it's still going to be us. It's still going to be loud and authentic and heartfelt and a little bit cheesy and a little bit half baked. But we, as far as like the tone, quality, and the artistic direction, like we're not cutting it.
Do you think
and we are really, yeah.
Do you think it'll be like 2021 or 2022 when you think, when should people expect?
I really can't. They shouldn't expect anything from us ever. Really, they shouldn't expect anything from us ever. All they should do is when we announce it, say thanks, because that's as far as we can really like plan in advance right now. I mean, I would love to have the album out next year. I'd love to have it out in 2021. That would be fantastic. But ultimately, like, the album's going to come out when we're ready to put it out. And it's going to come out when we feel like we've done everything in our album. And we're a really, really long way away from that.
Yeah.
We have progression, and taking that and turning it into an album is a lot. I want it to be a lot more serious and a lot more of an involved process than I've ever allowed it to be. And rather than being scary and feeling overwhelming, we're all really excited, actually. And we're all really motivated and really kind of looking forward to getting things going. Like, COVID and the coronavirus situation really slowed down. We don't have access to space right now. So we can't really demo. We can't really practice. And I don't really like jamming or writing if we can't do it at so it makes things hard, but like, at the end of the day, like, we still all have each other, and we still all want to be in this band, and we all want the same thing at the end of the day, and that feels good. And that's I think that's what being about is, like, feeling like you're part of a family, and I definitely feel that.
Yeah, absolutely. What was it like opening for Hobo Johnson?
It was tight, bro. Honestly, it was sick. Frank's a homie. Like, for real, he's a really, really nice, like, genuine person. I think it's actually really interesting. Like, I say this in the most endearing way humanly possible. Like, they're just a bunch of dumbass. Like, for real. Like, they have no idea what they're doing. Like, they're just a crew of dudes who, like, I don't want to say got lucky, because, like, getting lucky invalidates, like, the fact that, like, he is a good songwriter and that people do music. But, like, they got handed a crazy fucking opportunity.
Yeah. And, I mean, it just hit at the right time, you know?
Yeah, that, and I don't feel like they're squandering it.
No,
I'll tell you that. I feel like they really realize that. They realize the opportunity that they have, and Frank is doing everything in his power to be the best version of himself that he possibly can be. And I really, really, really respect that. To be honest, like, there wasn't a whole lot that we were able to learn from them, if that makes sense. Part of going on tour and opening for a band for me is getting to learn from people. You know, like, Sad Summer was insane because I got to hang out with Soupy every day and, like, hear about what, like, Wonder Years tours were like back in the day. And I got to hang out with, like, Derek from Mayday Parade and, like, talk about the way that they, and, you know, like, meet their stage managers and their guitar, see how this world, like, operates and, like, on a different scale, you know, like, that's super interesting and fun for me. And Hobo, like, there wasn't really anything that they were good at doing, besides playing the shows and, like, getting the kids to like their band. Like, their TM was a mess. Their, you know, their organization as, like, a band and, like, as a crew was a fucking mess. Their lighting guy was a mess.
Well, that's how you know it's real. I mean,
no, exactly. They put their heart and souls into it, and I think it was at the end of the day a learning experience for me, because I realized that, like, that side of the industry doesn't interest me. That, like, the big money, like, Warner Music, like, getting your merch shipped to the venue every show, taking, you know, a tour bus, like, literally getting, like, paid a salary for the tour.
Insane. From
Live Nation. That doesn't interest me. I want no part of that for myself and for my life and for my band. But it feels good to know that we can still coexist in that world, and that, like, we can still show up and play House of Blues. And, yeah, it's a little bit punishing, and yeah, it's a little bit, you know, it's a little bit not our style. But hopefully, if we play our cards right and we write a really, really back, we'll be the ones headlining, and we'll be able to put on the show that we want to be able to provide a platform for like all that we think deserve to be playing in front of that many people. And so getting to do that was really, really, really cool. We're really grateful. And it was, I don't know, for me, it was really, really empowering. I never would have thought that like a band could go on tour with like 3 hip hop groups and have fun and have the crowd like them. And they did. It worked out. So
was there like any crossover in the audience of fans?
There was a little bit. I think not as much as Hobo probably expected or anticipated or hoped, but also he didn't bring us on that tour because of crossover. Like Frank just likes like he came to he came to our show like in Sac, like we played there with Mover Shaker, and he watched Mover Shaker, and he watched King of Heck, he watched Pool Kids, like he fucking hung out. Like
that's cool.
Like he's a G, and like he came and watched me play like a solo set like brewery in Oakland. Like he's a real homie, and he likes our music, he likes our band, and that's the only reason why he asked us to go on tour. Now it shows like naivety in a way that like he doesn't really know how it works, but it's also like I fuck with that. Yeah, I respect with somebody like at the top being like, no, bands out, because that's how I roll. That's how I.
Yeah, and that rocks.
And it's cool to see. It's cool to see being, and whether or not their values line up with my values, like Frank is definitely being true to himself, and it was inspiring to be around.
Totally. Well, thank you for doing this with me, dude. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, of course. This was fun. It was nice talking to you.
I love hearing the stories, the origin stories, and like, you know, you guys have had such a unique ride that, you know, I think people will be glad to hear this.
Yeah, and I hope that like our experiences, if anything, can just like provide insight to people that there really is like no right or wrong way of doing this whole thing, and that, you know, I don't know. I really do believe that if you just focus on surrounding yourself with people that make you feel good, like that's all you need.
Hell yeah.